Throughout the ages, relationships have been the cornerstone of our species. Relationships have helped craft our experiences, shaping emotions and identities, making the human experience the wonder that it is. I believe we're created to relate.
Good day, beloveds. How do you do? Welcome to Talks from the Heart with Mandy, brought to you by Agape Wellness Coaching, a place where being begins at root. I am Mandy, a spirituality teacher and transformational relationship coach, as well as founder of Agape Wellness Coaching, and I'll be journeying with you, talking heart to heart.
Welcome once again, beloveds, to yet another episode of Talks from the Heart with Mentor, where we explore the depths of spiritual and mental wellness, as well as personal growth and self-discovery in relations. I am your host, Mentor, still journeying with you, talking heart to heart. In episode 8, we continued our exploration of one's relationship with oneself as we discussed openness with and to oneself. Today, we're going to continue exploration of relationships and relational wellness. In his devotion upon imagined occasions, John Donne the Elizabethan said, "No man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. No man is an island." Being the social species that we are, our need for relations and not with our longing for reunion and relationship with the divine, but this longing is extended to all of humanity, all of creation. We are connected to one another as parts, as fragments of the divine. We long for reunion and relationship with one another, with all of creation, whether be it nature, be it our environments, whether be it with other humans. We long for that relationship with one another. Throughout the ages, relationships have been the cornerstone of our species. Relationships have helped craft our experiences, shaping emotions and identities, making the human experience the wonder that it is. I believe we're created to relate. We are made manifest to relate to each other, to live in oneness with each other. In fact, we thrive because of the connections we have with each other. Imagine our human experience without these relationships. How would that be? Imagine our human experience without these relationships. How would that be? In recent times, we have seen technology making it easy for us to connect with each other. But even with this ease of connectivity to each other, we remain disconnected. And more often than not, these connections lack depth. Like I said before, in one of the episodes of our journey to relational wellness, I think it's episode 6, where we first explored relationships, I said, all relations occur within a social context. Our roles and functions within the set relationship, more often than not, determine the nature of our relations. I said that, I think it was episode 6, wherein we explored relations, the topic of relations. I said that all relationships occur within a social context, and our roles and functions within the set relationship, more often than not, will determine the nature of our relations, right? Now, the reason these technology relations, social media relationships lack depth is because we connect for an incident. We connect over an incident that interests us. We connect because we follow a certain religion or a certain celebrity or a certain cause. But it's more on a superficial level than it is on a deeper level where we get to interact beyond those spaces. More often, of course, there are those groups that actually get to meet, but those groups would have formed and maybe decided they're going to take things beyond the internet, because in as much as we're brought together by this technology, if we do not make the effort to physically meet each other, everything remains on that superficial level. We do not get to be in each other's presence, to feel in each other's energy in a sense that we are in the presence, physical presence of each other's essence. We do not get to really connect. There is something about physical presence that we take for granted. That's why these social media relations, these internet relations, often will leave people forlorn. They will leave them feeling alone. The minute they disconnect from the technology and be on their own, they feel alone. They feel like, oh, I'm alone. The only thing we connect over is that cause or the celebrity or the religion. And it is over incidents that happen once in a while. It could be a post that brings us together where we say, yay, I like this post. But beyond the discussion about the post, do we know each other? Do we get to present ourselves to each other? No, we don't, right? So our desire for connection with each other is stifled somehow. Our desire for connection with each other is stifled. It doesn't go beyond, oh, I like this one. It doesn't go beyond our bashing of a certain person. It doesn't go beyond our talking against or talking for a cause, right? It doesn't go beyond current affairs discussions that are online. After you leave a comment on YouTube or on Instagram, the people that are interacting with you are really interacting with the comment and not the person behind the comment, if you know what I mean, because it sort of makes sense to them. And it's because you share a common interest or it's a shared opinion only then. And sometimes it's not even shared opinion. It's more of we are clashing over that opinion, you know, and you drain your emotions with this superficial connection. And then when you walk away from it, disconnecting, you realize, oh, I'm not really that connected to these people. I'm not really in a friendship or relationship with these people. I'm alone here in my space. I'm alone here in my apartment. I'm alone here and there is nobody to talk to. So what? Now, sad thing is that a lot of people, when they see followers, when they see these superficial connections, they sit around and think, oh, I've got friends, I've got people, until something happens to them and they realize, I don't really have people. A lot of people don't make friends outside of the friends they made in high school or in college. When you don't have friends that you've been friends with for a long time, it's very difficult to make friends, right? So a lot of people don't necessarily make friends beyond college and work and all of those spaces. So if you do not have friends that you've made beyond any of these spaces, whether it be at work, college, high school, if you don't have friends that you've made outside of these spaces, in most cases, people do not make friends outside of those spaces. Very rarely do. Perhaps I am one of those people who find it hard to make friends, or even the people that I've met find it hard to make friends outside of these spaces. But you know what I mean? It's one of those things where once you connect with people in primary shared spaces like your schools, your workplace, these are places where we spend most of our time, right? So if you don't make friends from those spaces, in most cases, the friendships we make outside of those spaces are really casual. They're not that deep connections. In most cases, they're not deep connections as such. They just, I met a person. You form acquaintanceships and nothing more than that. In most cases, again, it isn't a matter of it's always the case. No, it isn't. But yeah, if you don't have friends that know you, if you have no connections with your colleagues, you have no connections with your family, you are left with the followers, you're left with the superficial connections that you have online. And once you disconnect from them, you realize, I really have no one. You're left with a longing to connect. And it's in our human nature to want to connect to each other. That's where you find yourself spending more time than necessary on these streets, trying to be what you're not, to garner more following, to garner more people talking to you, or you find yourself in comment sections, commenting on things that you have no business commenting over, but hey, you long for connection. If somebody bashes your comment or your opinion, you go at it. You get emotional, worked up, because you feel connected just for that moment. But there is no depth in these connections, right? There is no depth. What would you say your function and role is in these relationships that you think you have? A fan of that celebrity that does not even acknowledge you? What is your role or function in this relationship that you have with the people that you're arguing with over social issues, current affairs? What's your role in that? You have no role. You have no function. You're just there, a spectator, an observer, and a commenter. But beyond that, there is no depth. These things happen on a superficial level that does not satiate our longing for intimacy, our longing for deep connections beyond trivia. And in view of our relationship with God, humans have an innate longing for home. We have a longing to reunite and attach to source. We have a longing to just want to attach to source. Whether you call the source of all things, the creator of all things, God, whether you call God Father, whether you call God creator of all things, whether you call God whatever name that you have for him. Because remember, our relationship with God also is influenced by our environments where we come from, and our social and cultural context have a lot to do with our views of who God is, who source is. Right. So whatever you call God, whether God be source, or whether God be father, whether God be mother, whether God be creator of all things, whether God be healer, whether God be universe to some, which is, again, something that a lot of people have problems with, but it is not our business here. We are here to talk about relations. Whatever your view of relations with God, that comes with a longing to attach, a longing for home, a longing for reunion with your source, your creator, your maker, your something or someone higher than you, the higher essence of who we are as creation, as humanity. We have a longing for that. We hunger for that. Now we can see this theme playing itself throughout time and across cultures. In spiritual and or religious spaces around the world, we have seen this theme play itself over and over again. Question is, where did we get it wrong? How did we get relationships wrong? How do we get it wrong when we are created with an innate ability and desire for connection? In fact, we thrive because of the connections we have with each other. With no intention to get a little preachy, I would like us to get back to basics. We need to get back to the basics of relationships. Relationships are only as simple and enjoyable as we want them to be. Like I've already said in our previous episodes, that all our relationships start with oneself. One's relationship with oneself sets the tone for all their relationships, for the rest of their relationships with the world around them. The relationship that one has with himself, the relationship that one has with oneself sets the tone for their relationships with the rest of the world around them, whether be it their relationship with God, whether be it their relationship with humanity around them, their environment. That relationship with oneself sets the tone. Now, if you've got a bad relationship with yourself, you know that it'll definitely impact all the other relations you have with the world around you, right? You know that. So why not making an effort to better your relationship with yourself, your personal relationship with self? Why don't you make an effort to better it so that you have better relations with the rest of the world around you. It is as simple as the Levitical law that says, love your neighbor as yourself, or the words of our Lord Yeshua in Matthew 7:12 saying, so in everything, do to others as you'd have them do unto you. Therefore, this sums up the law and the prophets. So in everything, do to others as you'd have them do unto you, for this sums up the law and the prophets. These words are a common theme throughout cultures and religions of the world. Now, you may say, but it's just one verse out of a whole chapter, right? But if you look at the preceding verses, they are more about relations. Yeshua is saying to the people, ask, you shall receive, seek, you shall find, knock, it shall be opened unto you, right? Now, it goes on to say that everyone who asks will receive, he who seeks will find, and the one who knocks, and to the one who knocks, the door will be open. And he says, which of you, if your son asks for bread, will give them a stone? Or if they ask for fish, will give them a snake? If you then know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good gifts to those who ask of him, right? But you have to realize this section isn't just about us receiving from God, because he sums this up, this section, he closes off this section with saying, so in everything you do, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. This is more of how we relate to each other. Do not be afraid to go to your neighbor and knock. Do not be afraid to go to your neighbor to ask for help. Do not be afraid to seek. Go to your neighbor seeking, asking, knock that door, right? Because he says that which of you, if the son asks for bread, would give them a stone? Would you give your son a stone for bread? Would you give your son a snake for fish? Would you give your son a snake for fish? Would you? He then says, if you being bad as you'd want to be, as you are, know how to give good gifts, what more of your Father in heaven? How much more would your Father in heaven give good gifts unto you? But when you look at it on the surface, you're thinking, perhaps it's about God giving us good gifts. But then if it was just about God giving us good gifts, why would he close off that section with, so in everything you do, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you? He's telling us that we here on earth are to carry out the good deeds of God amongst each other. Now, if I am treating my neighbor as I want to be treated, that would be me showing the love of God unto my neighbor, extending and expressing the love of God unto my neighbor, right? And we need to be aware that people do not see God outside of each other. People will never experience the love of God outside of each other. The love of God will show up in another person. If you ask God for something and your neighbor comes up and helps you with that thing, that person is showing you the love of God. That person is your answered prayer. God didn't come to you, bringing you whatever you wanted directly, but through your neighbor, God showed up. Right? I don't know if you get what I'm saying. This do unto others as you'd have them do unto you is what carries all of the laws, all of the prophets. Like all the messages of the prophets, all the messages of the law, they are encapsulated in this one statement. You would not hurt your neighbor if you love them. You'd not hurt your neighbor if you respect them as you respect yourself. If you love God, you love your brother, you love the next person, and they will only experience the love of God through you, right? I think it's John in 1 John that said, if anyone says, I love God, yet hates his brother, such a person is a liar. I think it's 1 John 4:20, where he says that if anyone says, I love God, yet hates his brother, such a person is a liar, right? You cannot love God and not love the next person. You cannot. If you love God, you love your brother, your sister, whoever. It doesn't matter if they are unlikable. You may not like them, but loving them is something that comes with being human. If anything, this brings us back to one's relationship with oneself. If you are kind to yourself, you'll be kind to the next person. That's why it's you doing unto the next person as you'd have them do unto you. When you think of yourself, you'd want to protect yourself. When you think of yourself, you'd want to love yourself. You'd want to take care of yourself. You'd want to feed yourself. You'd want to have your prayers answered. When you're asking for help, you'd want to receive help when you need it, right? So when your neighbor, when your brother, when your sister, whoever they are, asks for help or needs something, or even just when it comes to just outright loving them, why not? This, guys, is the golden rule that is spoken of, that is considered as common rule, as common knowledge amongst the cultures and religions of the world. In Buddhism, it's hurt not others in ways that you yourself would find hateful. Udana Vega 5:18, I think. And if you go to Confucianism, you do unto others what you would have them do unto you. Analects 15:23. In Hinduism, it says, "This is the sum of all your duties. Do not do to others what would cause pain if done to you." This is in the Mahabharata 1517. In Taoism, it says, "Regard your neighbor's gain as your own gain. Regard your neighbor's loss as your own loss." Now, in Mayan texts, it's more an emphasis of our oneness. You are myself, we are all one. So if I'm doing unto you what I cannot handle being done to me, it's the same as me hurting myself. In Native American cultures, it's respect for all life is the foundation, the great law of peace, right? And of course, in pagan teachings, it's do as you will and none. Do as you will and harm none. Now, in the teachings of Plato, you see something like, "May I do to others as I would that they should do to me." In humanism, in humanist teachings, it says, don't do things that you wouldn't want to have done to you. Don't do things that you wouldn't want to have done unto you. I could go on and on the whole day about the various religions. I won't cover everyone, but these are the few that I could cover. And I think Islam as well says, no one of you is a believer until you desire for another that which you desire for yourself. It's in the Sunnah. And in Judaism, it's said, what is hateful to you, do not do to your neighbor. That is in the entire Torah. It's in the Talmud. So in Jainism, in happiness and suffering, in joy and grief, regard all creatures as you'd regard your own self, right? I mean, I could go on forever talking about the different cultures, the different religions, mentioning what their take of this golden rule is, but it sums it all up. It is more about loving your neighbor as you love yourself. It is loving God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And in loving God with all your mind, with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. And again, you soon realize, the same God that is in me is the same God that is in my neighbor. The same essence of God that dwells in me, that resides in me, is the same as the God essence in my neighbor, the God essence in my pet, the God essence in nature around me. So why not love it all, right? Our oneness with each other, with our environment, is oneness with God, is love that is an unbreakable circle in my loving my neighbor, in my loving nature, in my loving the animals, in my loving everything that is around me. I'm loving God. We are taught to disengage God from creation. We are taught to disengage God from ourselves, so much that we do not see the presence of God unless it is summoned in a church service where we're saying, the presence of God come, presence of God come. But what about the presence of God that is with you every day? What about the presence of God that is with you in your neighbor? What about the presence of God that is with you in your children or in your pets, in the plants around you? You know, when you love it all, you're loving God. As you do to them, as you'd have them do unto you, you are loving God. Now, I think it is time we go back to basics with this one rule, one golden rule. Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. This hinges upon your relationship with yourself. How you see yourself is how you see the next person. If you see yourself as one who carries the essence of God in them, you will then see that in another person. You will then see it in the nature around you. You will then see the essence of God in everything, and you will treat them and whatever that is out there the same way you'd want to be treated, with respect and love. I will end this episode here. We will, in the next episode, speak further, explore further our relationship with God and others. We are going to extend this discussion, but for the sake of time, I would like us to end this here. Again, there's no better tip than just going back to basics, doing unto others as you'd have them do unto you. Now, as always, I've enjoyed sharing whatever little I had to share today. I hope you enjoyed it. Remember, this show is available to you on the various streaming platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon, YouTube, pretty much every streaming platform, including our website at www.agapewellness-center.com. Now, if you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful, please share it with others who might benefit from it. Rate it, like it, leave a comment or a review. And please do not forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can also contact us on social media, as we're available to you on Instagram as at Agape Wellness Coaching. And you can also visit our website through our contact page at www.agapewellness-center.com. Remember to be on the lookout for our next episode, as we will continue this exploration of our relationship with God and others. We will definitely continue this discussion in the next episode. We will further explore our relationships with God, self, and others in the next episode. Now, I hope you enjoyed this one as much as I have. It saddens me to leave, but because of time, it is indeed time for me to love you and leave you. And yep, we will see each other next episode. In the meantime, remember to take care of yourself. Remember to be kind to yourself. This is your host, Manda, signing out until the next episode. Stay blessed. Shalom.